You've already called the real estate agent, you've already mentally spent the money, and you're sitting there thinking, I just need to get some photos taken and put a sign in the yard. I hear that. I really do. But I've walked through enough houses right before they went to market, and I've seen the same avoidable mistakes over and over again. And I'm telling you right now, listing your house before you check these 7 things is one of the most expensive decisions you can make. Not because buyers are picky, because buyers are smart. And the things that seem small to you, the things you've lived with for years and stopped noticing, those are exactly the things that kill deals, drop offers, and put you on the wrong side of a negotiation table. Hit subscribe before we start, because I put out videos like this regularly, and I don't want you missing the next one. I'm Jerry Davis, and I've been in construction and renovation for a long time. I've worked on flips, full gut rehabs, cosmetic refreshes, pre-sale prep, all of it. And the number one thing I've learned is that selling a house isn't just about what your house is worth. It's about what a buyer thinks your house is worth the moment they walk through the door. Those are 2 very different numbers, and the gap between them is usually filled with details the seller never bothered to address. So let's go through all 7 of them, and I promise by the end of this, you'll have a real action list, not just a pep talk. Let's start with the front door, because this is where the showing either begins well or begins badly, and most sellers completely overlook it. I get it. You've been walking through that door for 10 years, and you stopped seeing it a long time ago. But your buyer is seeing it for the first time, and they're forming an opinion before they even step inside. If the paint is peeling, if the hardware is scratched, or that dated brushed brass that hasn't been in style since 2003, if the light fixture next to the door is cracked or full of dead bugs, if the mat is worn out and the house number is falling off, all of that tells the buyer something. It tells them that this house has been neglected. And that's a dangerous first impression, because now they're going in looking for more problems instead of falling in love. Here's what I'd do. Spend $200, paint the front door a clean, confident color. Charcoal, navy, forest green, classic black. Replace the handle set and the light fixture with something in the same matte black or brushed nickel finish, so everything reads cohesive. Add a clean mat. Make sure the house numbers are mounted straight and visible. That's it. That's a Saturday morning's worth of work, and it changes the entire perception of the house before a single person gets past the threshold. The buyers who would have walked in skeptical now walk in curious. That matters more than people realize. Now let's talk about the garage door, which is the other curb appeal element that people completely underestimate. In a lot of homes, the garage door is the single largest visual element on the front of the house. It takes up more square footage visually than the front door, the windows, and sometimes the porch combined. And if it's an old raised panel door that's been dented, faded, or painted the wrong color at some point, it drags the entire exterior down. Buyers notice it, even if they can't articulate exactly why the house looks a little tired. A new garage door is consistently one of the highest return on investment upgrades you can make before a sale. Not a bells and whistles custom door, just a clean, flat panel or carriage style door in a color that actually matches or complements the house. It transforms the exterior instantly. And no, painting the old one usually doesn't get you there. If it's dented or the panels are warped, paint just makes a dented, warped door look like a freshly painted, dented, warped door. Moving inside now. The kitchen is the room that either sells the house or makes buyers start mentally calculating what it would cost them to fix it. And here's the thing. I'm not telling you to do a full kitchen renovation before you list. In most cases, that's not the right move. What I am telling you is that the details in that kitchen are going to get scrutinized harder than any other room in the house. So let's talk about what actually matters. The hardware. If you've got mismatched knobs, or the originals from when the kitchen was installed 15 years ago with that tired oil-rubbed bronze finish that's now half worn off, swap them all out. Consistent matte black or brushed nickel hardware on every cabinet door and drawer takes a kitchen that looks dated and gives it a cleaner, more intentional feel. Takes about an hour. Costs maybe $80 to $150, depending on how many pieces you need. The faucet is the other one. If your kitchen faucet is dripping, has calcium buildup around the base, or looks like it belongs in a rental from 2009, replace it. A decent single-handle pull-down faucet in a finish that matches your new hardware runs around $150 to $200. That's not a big spend, but it signals to a buyer that things have been maintained and updated. The counters and backsplash are harder and more expensive to address, so I'm not saying rip everything out. But if your grout is stained and hasn't been cleaned in years, clean it. If there are chips in the countertop, get them repaired. Buyers are standing right there at that island, looking for reasons to come in lower on price. And every little flaw they find becomes ammunition. Let's move to the bathrooms, specifically the primary bathroom, because this is the second most important room in the house, after the kitchen, when it comes to buyer perception. And here's where I see people make one of the most common and most costly mistakes. They renovate the wrong way right before they sell. Someone decides the bathroom needs to be freshened up, so they go out and choose something they personally love, something bold and trendy, and they install it. And look, I'm not here to argue about taste, but when you're selling a house, your taste is actually a liability if it's specific. That loud geometric tile might look exciting today, but the buyer standing in your bathroom is calculating how much it would cost them to remove it if it's not their style. You want the bathroom to feel fresh, clean, updated, and neutral enough that the buyer can picture their own stuff in there. Here's what makes the biggest difference without spending a fortune. Re-caulk the tub and shower. Old caulk that's yellowed, cracking, or has any visible mold is an immediate red flag for buyers. It's cheap and easy to fix, and it makes the whole space look significantly cleaner. Replace the vanity light fixture if it's dated. Add a frameless or simply framed mirror if you've still got the builder-grade vanity mirror that was glued directly to the wall. Replace the toilet seat if it's stained or cracked. No one wants to think about that. And make sure the exhaust fan is actually working. If it's not, buyers or inspectors will notice, and then suddenly there's a conversation about moisture, mold, and ventilation that you really don't want happening right before you close. Now here's one that almost no seller thinks about until it's too late: the electrical panel. This one can blow up a deal completely. Not because there's necessarily a serious problem, but because the moment a home inspector flags something with the panel, buyers get nervous. And depending on what they find, they can either walk away or use it to renegotiate hard. If your house has a Federal Pacific panel or a Zinsco panel, I'm going to be straight with you. That needs to be addressed before you go to market. Those are panels that have well-documented reliability and safety concerns, and a good inspector is going to call it out every single time. Replacing the panel isn't cheap. It runs anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000 depending on your location and the scope of the work. But having that conversation after an inspection with a nervous buyer and a real estate agent breathing down your neck is much worse than addressing it up front and pricing your home accordingly. Beyond the panel itself, check your outlets. GFCIs should be installed in every kitchen, bathroom, garage, and outdoor location. If they're not, that's a code issue that inspectors flag routinely. And if you've got two prong outlets anywhere visible in the house, buyers are going to notice. It tells them the wiring in those areas hasn't been updated. Again, not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's information buyers use to negotiate. Get an electrician in before you list, do a full walkthrough, fix the small stuff. It's worth it. The crawl space and attic are the two places most sellers have never even looked at in years. And they're the two places inspectors always find something. This is where I see deals fall apart most often. A buyer falls in love with a house, goes under contract. The inspector gets under the crawl space or up in the attic, and suddenly there's evidence of moisture intrusion, inadequate insulation, old vapor barrier that's been compromised, or signs of rodent activity. None of those things are usually catastrophic, but to a buyer who just found out about them mid-transaction, they feel catastrophic. And sellers are almost always caught off guard because they assumed everything was fine under there. Here's what I'd tell you to do. Hire your own inspector or a pest and moisture specialist before you list. Spend a few $100s and get ahead of whatever's down there. If the vapor barrier is damaged, replace it. If there's inadequate ventilation, address it. If there are signs of moisture, figure out the source and fix it. Not only does this protect you from a renegotiation nightmare, but it also lets you market the house with confidence because you actually know what you're selling. That's a powerful position to be in. Which brings me to storage. And yes, I know this sounds like a staging conversation, but it's also a practical one. Buyers are not just looking at the size of closets. They're looking at how functional the space feels. If you open the primary closet and it's jam-packed, clothes falling off the rod, shoes stacked in towers on the floor, buyers mentally shrink that space by half. They don't see the actual square footage. They see chaos, and chaos feels small. Before you list, you should be living in that house like you've already half moved out. Pull things out of closets. Pare down, rent a storage unit if you need to. Show the rod space, show the shelf space, show the floor. The same goes for kitchen cabinets. If they open the pantry and it looks like a grocery store exploded, that pantry feels inadequate, even if it's a perfectly good size. And while we're talking about closets, if you have a primary bedroom closet that's still using those old wire shelving systems, the white-coated wire that gets everything tangled and looks like something from a 1987 apartment, consider a simple upgrade. A basic wood shelf and rod system from a home improvement store is not expensive, takes a day to install, and makes that closet feel like a real feature instead of an afterthought. Buyers, remember closets, especially primary bedroom closets. Last one, and this one is deceptively important. Paint. Not just touching up scuffs, which you definitely should do. I mean, taking a real honest look at your color choices throughout the house. If you painted your living room a color that was very personal to your taste, if you've got an accent wall in a bold color, if your hallway is a shade that made sense when you picked it, but now photographs dark and closed in, repaint it. Neutral doesn't mean boring white. It means warm, clean tones that work with a variety of furniture and decor styles. Agreeable gray, accessible beige, repose gray, Swiss coffee. These are popular for a reason. They make spaces photograph well, they feel livable, and they don't require a buyer to immediately repaint before they can move in. Every buyer who walks in and thinks, "I'd have to repaint this," is doing math in their head that reduces what they're willing to offer you. The fresh paint throughout the house also does something else. It makes the whole place smell clean and new. That's not a small thing. Buyers notice smell immediately. If the house smells like fresh paint in the best possible way, bright, clean, recently cared for, that works in your favor. Tell me in the comments which one of these you were about to skip, because I talk to sellers all the time, and at least 3 or 4 of these show up in almost every pre-listing conversation I have. Everyone thinks their house is in better shape than it is. And I don't say that to be harsh. I say it because you've been living there and living with things gets comfortable. But buyers don't have that context. They walk in fresh, and first impressions are the whole game. Listing your house isn't just a paperwork exercise. It's a presentation. And every one of these 7 things is something you can actually control before anyone ever walks through the door. Get ahead of them, and you're in a much stronger position. Better offers, cleaner inspections, fewer renegotiations, less stress. That's the whole point. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with anyone you know who's getting ready to list. I'll catch you in the next one.